The signal came on a Tuesday morning, cutting through every communication channel Earth had pointed at the stars. Day-Wan was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarms started screaming. He commanded the United Earth Defense Force's First Contact Division, a job that had been mostly theoretical until that moment. For 40 years, humanity had been listening to the cosmos, hoping for a friendly voice. What they got instead was a cry for help. The message played in the main command center. 17 different alien languages, one after another, all saying the same thing. The translation computers worked overtime, and within an hour they had it decoded. Day-Wan read the words 3 times, his coffee growing cold in his hand. To any civilization receiving this transmission, we are the Galactic Council. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years. Now we are dying. An enemy we cannot defeat is consuming our worlds. If you have weapons, if you have warriors, if you have any means of war, please help us. We are not prepared for this. Our people are not made for fighting. Millions have already died. Please, anyone, help us. The room fell silent after the message ended. Day-Wan looked at his staff. They all knew what this meant. Somewhere out there, an advanced alien civilization was losing a war so badly they were begging strangers for help. Within hours, the message reached every government on Earth. The debate started immediately. Some said it was a trap. Others said humanity should stay hidden. A few argued that Earth barely had enough ships to defend itself, let alone fight someone else's war. But there was another voice too. A louder one. Captain Hannah spoke at the emergency assembly in Geneva. She was young for a fleet captain, only 32. But she had spent her entire adult life preparing for the moment when humanity would meet other species among the stars. She stood before the representatives of every nation and spoke clearly. They asked for anyone with warriors, she said. That's us. Earth has warriors. We've always had warriors. We fought each other for 10,000 years and we got very good at it. Now someone needs that experience and they're dying while we debate. The vote took 2 days. In the end, Earth decided to answer the call. Not with everything they had, but with enough to make a difference. 3 warships, fast attack carriers loaded with fighters and weapons that had been designed to fight other humans. Now they would face something else entirely. Hannah was given command of the small fleet. Her flagship was the Incheon, named after the city where the first unified Earth spaceport had been built. The other 2 ships were the Busan and the Gwangju, both smaller but fast and deadly. Day-Wan met with Hannah the night before the fleet departed. They sat in his office looking at the star maps. The journey would take 6 weeks at maximum speed. 6 weeks while the Council worlds died. You understand what you're walking into? Day-Wan asked. Hannah nodded. A war. Against an enemy we know nothing about. To help aliens we've never met. And you still want to go? She smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. Sir, humanity spent centuries fighting itself. All that death, all that suffering, all those lessons learned in blood. If we can use that knowledge to save someone else, then maybe it meant something. Maybe all our wars weren't for nothing. Day-Wan studied her for a long moment. Then he stood and saluted. Bring our people home, Captain. Yes, sir. The 3 ships launched at dawn. Half the world watched the broadcast as they ignited their engines and climbed toward the stars. In the command center, Day-Wan watched the telemetry until the ships jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared from the sensors. Aboard the Incheon, Hannah addressed her crew. 200 men and women, all volunteers, all knowing they might never come back. We don't know what we'll find out there, she told them. We don't know if we're strong enough to make a difference. But we know someone is dying and asking for help. That's enough. Earth is sending its best, because that's what we do. We answer the call, the crew cheered. In the fighter bays, pilots like Ji-Woo checked their weapon systems for the 100th time. In engineering, Kyung-Soo made sure the reactors were running at peak efficiency. In the medical bay, Soo-Bin organized her supplies, hoping she wouldn't need most of them but preparing for the worst. Tactical Officer Tae-Young worked at his station, studying what little they knew about the Council. The message had included some basic information. 17 species, thousands of worlds, technology far beyond Earth's in many ways, but no military, no weapons designed for war, no experience with the kind of violence that humanity knew too well. They're peaceful, Tae-Young said to Hannah as they reviewed the data. Which means they're not ready for whatever is attacking them, Hannah replied. Do you think we can help? Really help? Hannah looked at the star charts at the vast distance they still had to travel. We're about to find out. The science officer, Yoonji, spent her time analyzing the Council's distress signal itself. The technology behind it was impressive. It had reached Earth from over 200 light-years away, clear and strong. These aliens could do things humanity couldn't dream of, but they couldn't defend themselves. "It's strange," Yunji said during a briefing. "They have faster-than-light travel. They have energy weapons. They have shields. But the way they describe their battles, it's like they don't understand warfare at all. They talk about their ships retreating after taking damage, about preserving resources, about minimizing casualties. That's good tactics," someone said. "No," Hana corrected. "That's peacetime thinking. In a real war, sometimes you have to accept losses to win. Sometimes you have to sacrifice to survive." It sounds like they've never had to learn that. The weeks passed slowly. The crew trained constantly. They ran combat simulations against unknown enemies. They practiced emergency procedures. They maintained their equipment with the obsessive care of people who knew their lives might depend on a single bolt being tightened correctly. And they waited. On the 40th day of the journey, they received another transmission from Council Space. Day 1 had arranged for Earth's deep space relays to forward any new messages. This one was shorter than the first. 3 more worlds lost. Evacuation fleets destroyed. Casualties in the billions. Still no response from any other civilization. "We are alone. We will die alone." Hana played the message for her crew. She saw the anger in their faces. The determination. Good, they would need both. 5 more days, she told them. Then we show them they're not alone. When the Inchin and its escorts finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Council Space, they were immediately scanned by dozens of alien sensors. A message came through, audio only, translated by computers that made the alien voice sound oddly mechanical. "Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves. Are you responding to our distress call?" Hana took a deep breath. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. She pressed the transmit button. "This is Captain Hana of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your call for help. We came as fast as we could. We're here to fight." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, and even through the translation, Hana could hear the emotion. Relief, hope, desperation. "Earth vessels, you have no idea how grateful we are. Please follow these coordinates to meet with our diplomatic fleet. We have so much to discuss. And please hurry. We don't have much time left." Hana looked at her crew. They looked back at her, ready for whatever came next. "Set course," she ordered. "Let's go meet our new friends." The 3 Earth ships turned and accelerated toward the heart of Council Space, toward a war they didn't fully understand, toward allies they had never seen. Behind them, 200 humans who had been trained in the brutal art of warfare since birth prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson it was about to learn the hard way. Sometimes, when you call into the darkness hoping for friends, Deathworlders answer first, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. The Council flagship was the largest thing Hana had ever seen in space. The Harmonious Dawn stretched for 3 kilometers, its hull covered in what looked like carved crystal that somehow functioned as armor. Hundreds of smaller ships surrounded it, all of them displaying damage, scorch marks, hull breaches sealed with emergency patches. This fleet had seen combat and barely survived. "They're beautiful," Yunji whispered from her station as she studied the alien vessels. "They're dying," Tae-young corrected, pointing at his tactical display. "Half these ships shouldn't even be flying. Look at those reactor signatures. They're running on backup power." Hana watched the massive diplomatic vessel grow larger on the view screen. Somewhere aboard that ship was the leader of an alien civilization that had ruled peacefully for 3,000 years. Now that leader needed humans, needed warriors from a planet they had never heard of because their peace had made them vulnerable. "Prepare the shuttle," Hana ordered. "Tae-young, Yunji, you're with me. Kyung-soo, you have command while I'm gone." The engineer nodded from his post. "Try not to start a war at the peace conference, Captain." Hana smiled despite the tension. "I'll do my best." The shuttle trip took 20 minutes. As they approached the Harmonious Dawn, Hana got a better look at the damage. An entire section of the ship's port side was missing, replaced by temporary hull plating that didn't match the crystalline structure. Whatever had done that had been powerful. The docking port opened like a flower, panels sliding aside in a pattern that seemed more artistic than functional. Inside, the corridor was wide enough to drive a tank through, and the lighting came from the walls themselves. a soft blue glow that reminded Hana of deep ocean water. A figure waited at the end of the corridor. Hana and her team walked forward, their magnetic boots clicking on the deck. As they got closer, the alien became clearer. It stood on 4 legs with a torso that rose up from the front pair. Its head was wide and flat with large eyes set on the sides. When it opened its mouth to speak, Hana saw no teeth, just flat grinding plates. "Welcome," the alien said through a translator device hanging from its neck. "I am Thalos. I speak for the Galactic Council. You are the humans?" Hana removed her helmet slowly, watching the alien's reaction. Thalos took a step backward, his large eyes widening even further. The humans didn't need to be experts in alien body language to recognize fear. "Yes," Hana said quietly. "We are humans. From Earth, we came to help." Thalos stared at her face for a long moment, at her forward-facing eyes, at her exposed teeth, at the way her body was built for pursuit and violence rather than grazing and peace. "You are predators," Thalos said, his voice shaking slightly through the translator. "Our ancestors were," Hana admitted, "but we evolved past that. We can do more than hunt, but you still can hunt." It wasn't a question. "Yes, we still can." Thalos seemed to struggle with something internal. Then he straightened, his 4 legs steadying. "Please, follow me. The council wishes to meet you." The council chamber was enormous. Representatives of 17 different species sat in a circle, each in an environment pod suited to their biology. Hana saw things she could never have imagined. A being made of what looked like living crystal, something that floated in thick methane gas, a creature that looked like a cross between a flower and a squid, and all of them flinched when they saw the humans enter. Thalos spoke to the assembly in a language that sounded like musical chimes. The translator converted it to words Hana could understand. "These are the humans from the planet they call Earth. They answered our distress call. They have come to fight the Vraketh swarm." One of the council members, a being covered in soft feathers, spoke up. "They are from a death world. Look at them. High-gravity bone structure, redundant organ, binocular vision for hunting. They evolved as apex predators." Yunji stepped forward. "What's a death world?" Another council member, this one resembling a large insect but with gentle eyes, answered. "A planet where everything tries to kill everything else. Where the weather can be deadly. Where radiation from the star mutates and destroys. Where life must be violent to survive." The being tilted its head. "How did your species become intelligent? How did you develop civilization while fighting to survive every day?" "We had no choice," Hana said. "We adapt or we die. That's always been our way." Thalos moved to the center of the chamber. "The council comes from gentle worlds. Our evolution was slow and peaceful. We developed intelligence to cooperate, to share resources, to build together. We have never known the kind of violence that shapes Deathworld species. Until now," Tae-young said quietly. "Until now," Thalos agreed. "The Vraketh swarm came from beyond the rim, from the dark spaces between spiral arms. They are a hive mind that consumes everything. They have taken 7 of our worlds, killed billions. Our weapons were designed for mining and construction, not warfare. Our shields were meant to protect against radiation and asteroids, not military-grade weapons. We are losing because we are not built for this." Before Hana could respond, an alarm shrieked through the chamber. A council technician's voice came over the speakers, high-pitched with panic. "Vraketh ships emerging from subspace. 12 vessels! They're heading straight for us." The council representatives began speaking all at once, their voices rising in fear. Thalos held up his front legs. "Evacuate the civilians. All ships prepare to retreat to safe distance." "Retreat?" Tae-young looked at Hana in disbelief. Hana activated her communicator. "Kyung-soo, hostile contact. Launch all fighters and prepare for combat. We're engaging." "Captain," Thalos said urgently, "you have only 3 ships. The Vraketh have 12. You must retreat with us." Hana looked at the alien diplomat. "We came here to fight. So we fight." She ran for the shuttle with her team. The corridor seemed longer than before. Behind them, they could hear the council ships beginning their retreat procedures, powering up engines to run rather than fight. The shuttle launched back toward the Incheon. Through the viewports, Hana could see the Vraketh ships. They were organic-looking things, all curves and spikes like deep-sea creatures that had evolved in the worst nightmare ocean imaginable. They moved with purpose, spreading into an attack formation. "They're not even fast," Tae-young muttered, studying the enemy approach on his portable display. They're just flying straight at the council ships. They don't need to be fast, Yoonji realized. The council always runs. The Vrakith have never had to chase anyone who fights back. The shuttle docked hard with the Incheon. Hana was on the bridge in seconds. Kyung-soo yielded the command chair immediately. Status? Hana barked. All 3 ships at battle stations. 40 fighters launched. Weapons hot. The council fleet is retreating. We're alone. Hana studied the tactical display. 12 Vrakith ships against 3 human vessels. Bad odds by any measure. But the enemy was moving like they expected no resistance. Jiwoo, Hana called to her lead pilot. You see that formation? Yes, Captain. Jiwoo's voice came through crisp and eager. They're bunched up like they're in a parade. Break them. Full attack run. Make them scatter. Understood? All fighters follow my lead. The council ships had pulled back to a safe distance, their sensors still active, watching. Thalos stood on his bridge, surrounded by his staff, all of them staring at the displays. The human ships weren't retreating. They were accelerating. Toward the enemy, what are they doing? Someone asked in horror. They're attacking, Thalos whispered. Jiwoo led his squadron in a dive that would have torn apart any council pilot. The human fighters were small and fast, built for the kind of dogfighting that Earth's nations had perfected over centuries of air combat. They screamed into the Vrakith formation at speeds that made the alien vessels look like they were standing still. The Vrakith had been expecting fleeing prey. Instead, they got wolves. Human missiles found their marks with vicious precision. Fighter cannons tore through organic hull plating that had never been designed to face concentrated fire. 3 Vrakith ships died in the first pass, their structures coming apart in explosive decompression. The remaining 9 Vrakith tried to adjust, tried to target the small human fighters. But Jiwoo and his pilots had trained for this their entire careers. They jinked and rolled, evaded and countered, every maneuver honed in the gravity well of Earth where mistakes meant death. The Incheon and its escorts moved into position. Hana watched the ranges close. Fire, railguns spoke. Missiles launched. Energy weapons that had been designed to crack bunkers and destroy warships did exactly what they were built for. The Vrakith shields, optimized to stop the Council's weak mining lasers, shattered under the assault. 2 more Vrakith ships exploded. A third lost power and began drifting. The remaining 6 finally broke formation, trying to scatter, trying to run. Don't let them, Hana ordered. Pursuit pattern Delta. Kill them all. The battle lasted 18 more minutes. When it ended, 12 Vrakith ships were destroyed or disabled. The 3 human vessels had some minor damage and had lost 2 fighters. Jiwoo and the rest returned to their carriers, their voices still pumped with adrenaline. In the council chamber, absolute silence reigned. Thalos stared at the tactical displays. In 18 minutes, the humans had achieved what the Council had failed to do in 3 major engagements. They had met the Vrakith and won decisively. The refugee station orbited Polara 4 like a small moon made of hope and desperation. Hana watched it grow larger through the shuttle viewport as they approached. Thousands of structures connected by tubes and corridors, all of it built hastily to house the millions who had fled the Vrakith advance. The station was never meant to hold this many people. That much was obvious from the overcrowded docking ports and the ships queued up waiting for spaces to open. There must be 10 million souls on that station, Yoonji said softly. 12 million, Thalos corrected from his seat across from them. And more arriving every day. We evacuated 17 colonies ahead of the Vrakith. We saved who we could. Hana heard what he didn't say. They hadn't saved everyone. They couldn't. The shuttle docked at a diplomatic port. When the airlock opened, Hana could hear the noise immediately. Not mechanical sounds, but voices, thousands of them echoing through the corridors, the sound of fear and loss and too many people in too small a space. The civilians want to see you, Thalos explained as they walked. Word of your victory has spread. Many are curious, some are grateful, and some are terrified. They entered a large open area that served as a commons. Hundreds of aliens filled the space from dozens of different species. When they saw the humans, the reaction was instant and dramatic. The crowd pulled back like a wave retreating from shore. Parents grabbed their children. Some beings turned and ran. Others stood frozen, their eyes wide with primal fear. Hana stopped walking. She had expected this, but seeing it still hurt. She looked down at her own hands, at her fingers that could grip and tear. At her body built for endurance and violence. To these gentle beings, she was a monster. "Captain," Tae-young said quietly, "maybe we should go." But then a small figure pushed through the crowd. A child, Hana realized, though she couldn't identify the species. It looked like a fuzzy ball with 4 tiny legs and enormous eyes. It walked right up to Hana and looked up at her. "Are you the warrior from the Death World?" the child asked in a high, musical voice. Hana knelt down slowly, making herself less imposing. "Yes, I'm from Earth. Are you afraid of me?" The child considered this seriously. "Mother says I should be. She says your people are dangerous, but you killed the bad things that ate my home, so I think you're good dangerous." A larger version of the child species rushed forward, clearly the mother. I'm so sorry, please don't hurt her." "I would never hurt a child," Hana said gently. She looked at the small being, still studying her fearlessly. "We came here to protect people like you. That's what warriors do where I'm from. We protect those who can't protect themselves." The child reached out and touched Hana's hand with a tiny paw. "Your skin is weird, but you're warm, like home was before we had to leave." Something broke in the crowd. The wall of fear cracked. Others began to approach cautiously. An elderly alien who walked on 6 legs came close, its eyes watery. "You saved my grandchildren," it said. "They were on a transport that the Vraekath attacked. Your fighters drove the monsters away. My family survived because of you." The old being bowed its front legs. "Thank you." More came forward with similar stories. The ships that had been saved. The evacuation that succeeded because human vessels held the line. Each story, each thank you, each tentative touch of gratitude. But Hana could also see the others, the ones who stayed back. The ones whose fear was stronger than their gratitude. She didn't blame them. Humans were scary, even to other humans sometimes. Talos led them deeper into the station to a conference room where other council members waited. One of them stood out immediately, a being covered in what looked like iridescent scales that shifted colors as it moved. "This is Meros," Talos introduced, "our chief xenopsychologist. He wishes to understand how Deathworld species think." Meros approached without fear, his eyes studying every detail of the humans. "Fascinating. Your muscle density is 3 times what I would expect for beings your size, and your bone structure suggests you evolved in gravity at least 40% higher than standard." "Our world is heavy," Yunji confirmed, "and our sun puts out more radiation than most life-bearing stars. We had to adapt. But how?" Meros circled them like a scientist examining specimens. "The energy cost alone should have prevented complex intelligence from developing. You should have remained simple survival machines." "We did," Hana said, "for a long time. Then we learned to cooperate, to hunt in groups, to share knowledge. Being smart kept us alive better than being strong." Meros made a gesture that Hana guessed was their species' version of nodding. "But you kept the strength too, and the aggression, and the ability to do violence," and he paused. "Do you enjoy fighting?" The question hung in the air. Tae-young answered, "No, but we're good at it. And sometimes being good at something terrible is better than being helpless." Later, Hana met with Thalos privately in an observation room overlooking the planet below. Polara 4 was beautiful, all blue oceans and green continents. It reminded her of Earth. "I need to tell you something," Thalos said. "Something shameful." "Go ahead." "We have been part of the Galactic Council for 3,000 years. In all that time we have never fought a war, never needed an army, never even conceived of military tactics as a science." Thalos's voice was heavy with something Hana recognized as shame. "When the Vraekath came, we tried to adapt our industrial tools into weapons. We tried to defend ourselves. But we don't think like warriors. We think like victims." "You're not victims," Hana said firmly. "You're people who were lucky enough to evolve in a kinder universe. That's not shameful. That's beautiful. But it's killing us. Every battle. We lose more ships because we don't understand how to fight. Our captains retreat when they should press forward. They hesitate when they should act. They try to preserve every life when sometimes sacrifice is necessary." Talos turned to look at her. "Your people understand these things. You knew them before you could even speak, probably. It's in your bones." Hana thought about Earth's history, the wars, the violence, the million small conflicts that had shaped humanity. "We paid a high price for that knowledge. If you can avoid paying the same price, you should." "But we're paying it anyway," Thalos said. "Just differently. We're dying because we refuse to learn. Over the next week, Hana's crew began working with Council personnel. The results were mixed at best. Tae-young tried teaching Council ship captains basic tactical thinking. He gathered them in a briefing room and presented a simple scenario. An enemy force attacking a convoy. 3 defensive ships versus 5 attackers. The enemy is stronger, Tae-young explained. But they're spread out, attacking the convoy from multiple angles. If you concentrate your force and hit them one at a time, you can defeat them even though you're outnumbered. But you have to accept that some convoy ships might be destroyed while you focus on the enemy. Do you understand? One of the Council captains, a being that looked like it was made of animated liquid, spoke up. You're saying we should let civilian ships die? I'm saying you prioritize. Kill the enemy ships quickly, even if it means some civilian casualties. If you spread your forces thin trying to protect everything, you'll lose everything. The liquid being rippled in what Hana had learned was a sign of distress. That's monstrous. How can you calculate lives like that? Because in war, if you don't calculate, everyone dies, Tae-young said. I know it's hard, but it's math. Cold, brutal math. The Council captain struggled with this. They asked questions, posed alternative scenarios, tried to find solutions where no one had to die. Tae-young answered each one patiently, but Hana could see the frustration building in him. In the medical bay, Soo-bin had better luck. She worked with Council doctors, showing them human emergency medicine. The procedures were shocking to them but effective. On Earth, doctors treat battlefield injuries, Soo-bin explained, demonstrating on a training dummy. We work fast. We accept that things will be messy and painful if it means saving lives. Speed over perfection, survival over comfort. A Council doctor, a being with multiple tentacles that served as both limbs and sensory organs, watched in horror as Soo-bin demonstrated a field amputation. That's barbaric. The pain alone could kill a patient. Not a human, Soo-bin said. We evolved with high pain tolerance. We had to, or we wouldn't have survived long enough to become intelligent. And yes, it's brutal. But it works. She showed them the statistics. Human combat medicine had survival rates that shocked the Council doctors. Injuries that would be fatal to Council species could be survived by humans. Not because human medicine was more advanced, but because humans themselves were tougher. Your bodies are designed for damage, the Council doctor said in wonder. You have redundant systems. Your blood clots faster. Your bones heal stronger than before they broke. It's like your entire species is built to survive trauma. We are, Soo-bin agreed. Because on Earth, trauma is just another Tuesday. Kyung-soo worked with Council engineers and he found them brilliant in ways that made him feel inadequate. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's in many fields. But when it came to military engineering, they had blind spots. Why don't your ships have armor here? He asked, pointing at a schematic. This section is vulnerable to focused fire. We prioritized energy efficiency, the Council engineer explained. Armor adds mass. The Vracath learned from their defeat. Hana watched the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. The enemy wasn't retreating. Instead, they had changed tactics completely. Rather than fighting the combined fleet directly, they were splitting their forces and hitting civilian targets across a wide front. 14 attacks in the last 3 days, Yunji reported, displaying the map of Council space. Red markers showed where the Vracath had struck. All of them against populated worlds or refugee convoys. Small strike forces, hit-and-run tactics. They're forcing us to spread our defenses thin. Tae-young studied the patterns. They're smart. They know we can beat them in a straight fight, so they're not giving us one. They're making us choose which civilians to protect and which to abandon. We can't abandon anyone, Thalo said from his position at the conference table. Around him sat the Council Military Committee, newly formed after the humans had arrived. Every world, every colony, every ship full of refugees, they all deserve protection. They deserve it, Hana agreed. But we can't provide it. The math doesn't work. We have 30 ships now with the Council vessels we've retrofitted for combat. The Vracath are hitting targets across 200 light-years of space. We can't be everywhere. Then we build more ships, one of the Council members suggested, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. We have industrial capacity. We can produce vessels. Not fast enough, Kyung-soo interjected. I've seen your shipyards. Even running at maximum capacity, you'd need 6 months to build a meaningful defense fleet. The Vracath will have consumed everything by then. The room fell into uncomfortable silence. The reality was unavoidable. The council couldn't defend all their territory. Something had to give. Hana pulled up the strategic map and highlighted a section of space. These 12 systems on the outer rim. They're the ones the Vraketh hit most frequently. Moderate populations, weak defenses, isolated from the main council worlds. Those systems have 30 billion people, Thalos said quietly. I know, Hana said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was suggesting. And if we keep trying to defend them, we'll lose them anyway along with everything else. But if we evacuate them now and consolidate our forces, we can hold a defensive line here. She drew a boundary on the map. Stronger position, shorter supply lines, concentrated forces. You're talking about abandoning 12 worlds, the crystalline being said in shock. Telling 30 billion people their homes are gone. Their homes are gone anyway, Taeyong said bluntly. The question is whether they die with their homes or live to reclaim them later. Another council member, one of the feathered species, stood up with their wings fluttering in agitation. This is exactly the kind of cold, calculating mindset we feared from Deathworlders. You would trade lives like they're numbers on a chart. Yes, Hana said, meeting the alien's eyes, because that's what they are in war. Numbers. And our job is to make sure as many numbers as possible survive to the end. That means making choices that hurt. Thalos held up a hand for silence. The humans have more experience with warfare than we do. We should listen, but Captain Hana, what you're proposing goes against everything the Council stands for. We don't abandon our people. Then you'll lose them all, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Daewon stood there in his full-dress uniform, flanked by 2 aides. The colonel had arrived on a fast transport ship with reinforcements and additional support staff. Colonel, Hana stood and saluted. I didn't expect you for another 2 days. We pushed the engines hard. Daewon walked to the conference table and studied the maps. I've been reviewing the tactical situation during the journey. Captain Hana's assessment is correct. You cannot defend everything. The Vraketh know this and are exploiting it. Thalos studied the human officer. And you agree with her plan? Abandoning 12 worlds? I don't like it, Daewon said honestly. No soldier likes retreat, but I've fought enough wars to know that sometimes you have to give ground to survive. The question isn't whether to pull back. It's how to do it in a way that saves the most lives. There has to be another way, Thalos insisted. Give me an alternative. Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, there might be one. Risky, aggressive, and completely against council nature. But it could work. He pulled up the map and pointed to the 12 vulnerable systems. Instead of just evacuating, we use these worlds as bait. We pull out the civilians, yes, but we leave behind something else. Sensor networks, automated defenses, and a small fleet of ships ready to respond when the Vraketh take the bait. A trap, Taeyong said, understanding immediately. A trap, Daewon confirmed. The Vraketh think these worlds are easy targets. Let them commit forces to consuming empty colonies. Then we hit them with everything we have while they're scattered and vulnerable. Yunji worked through the calculations on her tablet. It could work. If we evacuate secretly, if we make it look like the colonies are still populated, the Vraketh won't realize it's a trap until it's too late. You're proposing to deceive the enemy, the Crystalline Council member said. To lie, yes, Daewon said simply. In war, deception is a tool like any other. The Vraketh won't play fair. Either should we. The Council debated for hours. The concept of deliberately deceiving an enemy was alien to them. They were used to honest conflict, to transparent negotiations, to rules and protocols. The human way of warfare, with its emphasis on deception, sacrifice, and ruthless efficiency, was fundamentally disturbing to their psychology. But the alternative was extinction. Finally, Thalos made his decision. We'll do it. The evacuation begins immediately. But Captain Hana, Colonel Daewon, I want your word that you'll do everything possible to make this work. Those are our worlds you're using as bait. You have my word, Hana said. Daewon nodded. We'll bring them back to you. The evacuation was a massive undertaking. Kyung-soo coordinated with council engineers to make it look like the colonies were still functioning. They left lights on, power signatures active, communication traffic simulated. From a distance, the 12 worlds would appear normally populated. Meanwhile, transport ships worked around the clock, moving civilians to safer systems. 30 billion people, all of them frightened and angry about being forced from their homes. But they went. Because the alternative was worse. Subin worked with medical teams to handle the inevitable injuries and health crises that came with moving so many people so quickly. She found herself treating everything from panic attacks to injuries from overcrowded transports. The council doctors were overwhelmed by the scale of it all. "We've never had to move this many people this fast," one of them told her while they worked on a patient. "We don't have protocols for this." "Neither did we," Subin said. "Until we had to develop them. War teaches fast lessons." Jiwoo led the fighter squadrons that provided cover for the evacuation convoys. Twice they encountered Vracath scout ships. Both times they drove them off quickly, but not before the scouts could see what appeared to be normal colony activity. Good. The deception was holding. On the bridge of the Incheon, Hana coordinated with council fleet commanders. She had spent weeks teaching them tactics, and now she would see if the lessons had taken hold. "Remember," she told them over the communication channel, "when the Vracath arrive, let them commit. Let them think they're winning. Then we hit them from multiple vectors simultaneously. No hesitation, no mercy. We kill them all or we die trying." The council captains acknowledged the orders. Hana could hear the fear in their voices, but also determination. They were learning. The waiting was the hardest part. Days passed. The colonies sat empty except for automated systems and sensor networks. The main fleet gathered at the designated rally points, hidden behind moon shadows and asteroid fields. "What if they don't come?" Hyunji asked during one of the long watches. "They'll come," Taeyoung said confidently. "They're driven by instinct. They see weak targets, they attack. It's what they do." He was right. On the 8th day, the Vracath came. Not just a small raiding force, but a massive fleet. Hundreds of ships emerging from subspace near the 12 abandoned colonies simultaneously. "They're committing everything," Daewon observed from his command ship. "They think they can consume all 12 worlds at once and cripple us. They don't realize they're about to be crippled instead." Hana watched the tactical display as the Vracath ships spread out, each formation heading for a different colony. They were doing exactly what the humans had predicted. Splitting their forces, becoming vulnerable. "All ships," Hana transmitted on the fleet-wide channel. "Execute Operation Homeworld. Show them what happens when prey learns to hunt." The combined human council fleet emerged from hiding. 30 warships dropped into normal space around the Vracath formations, catching them completely by surprise. For the first time in the war, the Vracath were the ones being hunted. "Fire," Hana ordered. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for generations. The council ships, previously so hesitant and defensive, fought with coordinated precision. They had learned the lessons well. Concentrate fire. Target the weak points. Accept damage if it means destroying the enemy. Jiwoo's fighters swept through Vracath formations like a scythe through wheat. The alien ships expecting easy prey. The Vracath had one last card to play. Intelligence reports came in 3 days after the battle. The swarm hadn't retreated beyond council space as everyone had hoped. Instead, they had regrouped at the edge of the galactic rim, gathering every remaining ship they had. The final count made Hana's blood run cold. 300 vessels, Yunji reported, her voice tight with stress. "They're massing for one final push, everything they have left." Daewon studied the tactical displays in the war room aboard the Harmonious Dawn. Around him stood the council's military leadership, humans and aliens working side by side in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. "They're going for a decisive victory," he said. "All or nothing. If they win, they consume council space completely. If they lose, the swarm dies." "How many ships do we have?" Thalos asked. 23 combat-ready vessels, Taeyoung replied. "Another 12 that are damaged but still functional. 35 total against 300. The numbers didn't look good. Even with the training, even with human tactics, this was going to be brutal." "We can't win this," one of the council captains said, the feathered being who had argued against abandon the outer colonies. "The mathematics are impossible." "The mathematics were impossible at Homeworld too," Daewon reminded them. "But we won because we fought smarter, not harder. We'll do the same here." But even as he spoke, Hana could see the concern in his eyes. This was different. The Vracath weren't splitting their forces this time. They were coming as one massive wave, and they were angry. Over the next 2 days, the combined fleet prepared. Kyung-soo worked with council engineers to squeeze every bit of performance from the ships. Subin organized medical bays on every vessel, knowing they would be needed. Jiwoo drilled his pilots endlessly, running simulation after simulation, and Hana planned the battle of her life. She gathered her senior staff for one final briefing. We can't meet them head-on. We'd be crushed. But we don't have to. The Vrakith are a hive mind, which means they coordinate perfectly, but they also think in patterns. If we can break their pattern, we can break their cohesion. How do we break a hive mind? Hyunji asked. We make them think in too many directions at once, Tae-young said, understanding where Hana was going. We hit them from everywhere simultaneously. Overwhelm their ability to coordinate. Daewon nodded approval. Multiple strike groups, each one operating independently, attacking different parts of their formation. The Vrakith mind will try to respond to all threats at once and become paralyzed by choice. But we'd be splitting our own forces, the Crystalline Council member pointed out, against an enemy that outnumbers us 10-1. Each group would be dangerously vulnerable. Yes, Hana admitted. This plan has a high chance of failure, but it's the only one with any chance of success. The council leaders looked at each other. Months ago, they would have rejected such a risky plan immediately. But they had learned. They had changed. We do it, Thalos said firmly. All of us together. The fleet divided into 7 strike groups, each containing a mix of human and council vessels. Jiwoo's fighter squadrons were distributed among the groups to provide fast attack capability. Each group had a specific target and mission, all designed to execute simultaneously. Hana would lead the central group with the Incheon. Daewon commanded the northern flank. Council captains led the other groups, humans serving as tactical advisors. It was a plan built on trust and training, and if either failed, everyone would die. The Vrakith fleet emerged from subspace exactly where intelligence had predicted, near the Polara system. 300 ships moving as one perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. The hive mind coordinating their every move with inhuman precision. All groups, Hana transmitted. Wait for my signal. Let them commit to their attack vector. The Vrakith formation accelerated toward Polara, toward the refugee station and the billions of civilians it protected. They were going for maximum casualties, trying to break council morale completely. Hana watched the tactical display as the range closed. She needed to time this perfectly. Too soon and the Vrakith could react. Too late and they'd be in position to attack the station. Now, she said quietly. Then louder. All groups execute. 7 strike groups emerged from hiding positions scattered across the system. They came from above and below, from flanks and rear, from asteroids and moon shadows. The Vrakith formation suddenly found itself under attack from every direction. The hive mind tried to adapt. Ships peeled off to meet each threat, but that meant weakening the main formation. Other ships tried to maintain formation, but that meant ignoring immediate dangers. The perfect coordination that made the Vrakith so dangerous became a liability, as the hive consciousness struggled to prioritize hundreds of simultaneous threats. They're fragmenting, Yunji called out. The hive coordination is breaking down. Jiwoo led his squadron in a knife-edge attack run through the center of the Vrakith formation. Missiles flew. Cannons blazed. Enemy ships died, but so did human fighters. She could hear the pilots calling out Mayday signals, hear the clipped reports of systems failing and hulls breaching. The Incheon shook as a Vrakith weapon struck the shields. Kyungsu's voice came over the intercom. Shields at 60%. Reactor holding steady. Keep us in the fight, Hana ordered. Target their command cluster. If we can kill the central hive ships, the rest will lose coordination completely. The council ships were performing beyond anyone's expectations. The Liquid Captain's replacement, a younger officer of the same species, executed a textbook flanking maneuver that would have made any human tactician proud. A crystalline vessel used its natural radiation resistance to fly through a debris field that no other ship could survive, emerging to strike at Vrakith ships from an unexpected angle. But the Vrakith were learning too. Individual ships began operating with more autonomy, making their own tactical decisions rather than waiting for hive instructions. They adapted. They always adapted. Daewon's group took the heaviest casualties. 3 of his 5 ships were badly damaged, 1 destroyed completely. But they accomplished their mission, drawing a third of the Vrakith fleet away from the main battle. Colonel Daewon, Hana transmitted, fall back to secondary position. You've done enough. Negative, came the reply through heavy static. Still in the fight. Still have weapons. We're not done. That was the Deathworld spirit. Fight until you can't fight anymore, then fight some more. The battle raged for 3 hours. 3 hours of constant violence, of ships dying and people sacrificing themselves for the greater good. The refugee station's sensors captured everything, and billions watched in real time as their defenders fought for their survival. Subin worked frantically in the medical bay as wounded were brought in. Burns, decompression injuries, radiation exposure. She had seen it all in simulations, but the reality was so much worse. Council species weren't built for this level of trauma. Their bodies weren't designed to survive what humans considered survivable injuries. "We're losing them too fast," she told her medical staff, a mix of humans and council doctors. "Their biology can't handle the damage." "Then we adapt the treatments," a council doctor replied, working on a patient with multiple limb injuries. "You taught us that. Adapt or die. We choose adapt." The turning point came when Tae-young identified the Central Hive coordination ships. They were larger than the others, positioned at the core of the Vraketh formation. If they died, the entire swarm would become just individual ships with no overriding intelligence. "All groups," Hana transmitted, "converge on coordinates Alpha 7. We're going for the heart." What remained of the 7 strike groups turned as one and accelerated toward the center of the Vraketh fleet. It was a desperate move, flying directly into the densest concentration of enemy ships, but it was also the move the Vraketh didn't expect. Prey doesn't charge into the predator's jaws, but these prey had learned to be predators. Jiwoo led the fighter screen, clearing a path through sheer aggression and skill. Council pilots flew wing to wing with humans, both groups learning from each other in real time. When Jiwoo's ship took a hit and started tumbling, a council pilot was there immediately to cover him while he regained control. "I got you," the council pilot transmitted. "Like you humans say, nobody gets left behind." The Incheon's main guns fired continuously, the barrels running so hot that Kyung-soo had to cycle them to prevent catastrophic failure. Vraketh ships exploded left and right, but more kept coming. Always more. Then they reached the hive ships. "All weapons," Hana ordered. "Fire everything." The combined fleet unleashed every weapon they had. Missiles by the hundreds, railgun rounds, energy weapons. Even the council's repurposed mining lasers that they had been so ashamed of months ago. It all poured into the central hive ships. The Vraketh vessels tried to protect their command structure, ships throwing themselves in the way of incoming fire. But there was too much. The shields on the hive ships failed. Then the hulls breached. Then they began to explode. When the third and final hive ship died, something incredible happened. The Vraketh fleet simply stopped. 300 ships suddenly became 300 individual vessels with no coordination, no plan, no purpose. They drifted, some firing randomly, some trying to flee, some just floating dead in space.